Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Don Gulling, CEO of Verteks Consulting. Appreciate you joining us today for defining cyber resilience strategy for local and state government. I know a lot of us met and talked recently at FLGISA. We appreciate you attending today's webinar, and hopefully it's educational and informative for you. We don't want to make it a sales pitch, so we want to try to focus on how we can help each other during these unprecedented times, especially with something as critical as business continuity and disaster recovery. I'm really excited to have a longtime friend and colleague, Eric Torres, as our guest speaker today. I've known Eric for quite some time. He and I go back at least 6 years with him being at Datto that long. Eric is an award-winning speaker and a business continuity expert. He was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He lives there today. He's a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He's been in the IT industry for over 15 years. And during that time, he's held all the different kinds of roles you can possibly imagine, most recently focusing exclusively on business continuity and disaster recovery. And that's how we met in his role as an expert in the field. I had the pleasure of hosting Eric when we had our Tech Pulse event in Orlando a couple years back. And Eric was a guest speaker then on business continuity and disaster recovery. Some of you that are in attendance today were actually at that event. And we got rave reviews on Eric's presentation. Today, Eric is going to cover a bunch of content focused on state and local government primarily, and he's going to talk about how we can work together to solve this challenge of improving business continuity outcomes, kind of reducing recovery time, reducing recovery point, defining those things, and then just in general, how we cope with the unprecedented challenges we faced across the board, whether it be cybersecurity incidents, hacking, severe inclement weather, all the emergencies that IT folks know and don't love. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Eric Torres, our guest speaker. Eric, take it away.
All right, thanks, Don, and thank you all for joining us, and thanks for that warm introduction. You can see me right now. I started blushing on some of that, so thanks, Don, and it's been a good ride with the partnership that we've had together, and I look forward to doing more of these. And today we're focused on exactly that, the cyber resilience, and the way that we discuss cyber resilience. It's not just the preventative measures, but also what happens if there is an outage of any kind. How do we bounce back from that? So that's what we're going to focus on today. Real quick about Datto, because many folks have not heard of Datto, and that is by design, because we only partner with the best of the best, and that's why we are partners with Verteks. They're the ones that build and design and maintain these beautiful computer networks, and we're simply one of the tools to make sure that that network is always available, always online, and always running in the event of a natural disaster, of a cyber attack, or any other reason that networks go down. We are a global company with data centers all over the world, but all of the data within the U.S. stays within the U.S., and that's by design and for many different compliance reasons that are out there, specifically when it comes to government compliances. And the other number that I really like sharing is we're at just under 1 million small to medium-sized organizations that are protected under the Datto umbrella. So that's just a testament to those here that are tuning in today, and those in the future that may want to take that next step and look at some of the services that Verteks offers. It's a testament to you guys and trusting Verteks as the providers and the curators of your data, making sure that it's secure. Now, Don had mentioned disruptions, and you guys in your part of the world and in Florida specifically, there are the operational disruptions due to the natural disasters and events that happen. The threat of natural disasters is a major concern, much more than in any other part of the country. When I'm talking to people, you know this. You've got the hurricanes, you've got the tropical storms that come through, and even just the daily thunderstorms and lightning strikes that occur. You have to protect the network from these power surges and outages that happen, and this is nothing new for you guys, and this is just something that you guys are even a little bit more a step ahead of other people in different parts of the country, because you do have to deal with so many of these natural disasters and threats. But what everybody has to focus on, and what will ultimately happen to just about every network out there, are the operational cyber threats, the cyber attacks, the breaches, the ransomware that gets deployed on the network. Now, I want to share some stats, some stories, and some things that I've picked up over the years as far as these cyber threats, who they are, how they're happening, and also just all out how often it's happening. How often is an organization hit with ransomware? Now, there's a ton of stats that are out there. I follow all of this. I'm not going to read through all these stats one by one. I just shoot right down to the bottom one. A business is hit with ransomware, an organization hit with ransomware every 13 seconds. That's how prevalent this is. And these are just US statistics. This isn't globally. So that is how prevalent that this is happening. And it is happening that way and that often because these bad guys are making a ton of money doing it. And they do not care who you are. They're going after your data. You could be from any organization, whether that's the government, healthcare, or there's even cases of dog walkers that have had their networks attacked, which is mind-boggling to me. It's happening so often that our Department of Treasury, actually in Q4 of last year, they released an advisory, and they said, listen, there's some steps that we are thinking about within the government ourselves, within the federal government, that actually they're looking at making paying the ransom itself illegal. Because essentially what you do when you're paying a ransom for ransomware, somebody locks down your data, you're essentially funding terrorism by paying that ransom. And we do have that tied back to who some of these threat actors are. And they are terrorist organizations. And they are from nation states that do not like us. So this is something we are watching very, very closely as more and more organizations adhere to the cyber resilience strategies and cyber insurance policies. And then looking at, I meet people all the time that are saying, well, I've got some Bitcoin saved that if I do get attacked, I'll just pay it. And that's simply not the way that the future is moving. We're actually talking about making payment illegal. Now, we also have to take a look at, to understand the big picture, you have to take a look at the internet itself and where all of this stems from and what we need to look at in order to develop that cyber resilience strategy. And the first step is the internet and what it actually looks like. You and I, we're in the surface web on a daily basis. This is our social media, our Amazons, our Googles, where we get our news. And think about how vast of a place that seems to be. Then you have the deep web, anything that's behind a gate, your medical records, financial records, government records, academic databases. Below that's the dark web. And I don't know about you guys, if any of you have ever ventured onto the dark web, it is a scary, scary place. I actually had one of our engineers walk me through it. I said, how do you even get in and what is it? And within a few minutes, he showed me how to do it on a safe computer. It was not my computer, but showed me what it really was. And the dark web is an immensely vast place where you can find literally anything that you're looking for. When you add up the deep and the dark web, that accounts for 96% of all the traffic on the web. So think about that. How big of a place that we live in on a daily basis, that's only 4% of how large the web really is. And that is where these cyber threats stem from. And the evolution of these and quite frankly, who these threat groups are. And I'll break it down real simple, as many of you know this. Ransomware developers, they are making a ton of money doing this. And these are not just lone wolves in their basement or in their bedroom that are deploying this. These are full-blown organizations. We also saw an increase of insider threats, especially last year. We had a lot of organizations, both on the government side and the private sector, that were tightening their belts. And there were furloughs and laying people off, and there were a lot of disgruntled employees due to that. As a result, we were finding that in a lot of cases, that a lot of these employees, or some of these employees, were actually selling their credentials on the dark web. And they were willingly saying, here, I'll leave a door open for you, come attack this, because they were upset. Now, I mentioned that these were organized groups, and you bet that anytime we have that much money exchanging hands, organized crime wants their cut. And when I say organized, I mean fully organized. As I mentioned, these are not lone wolves. These are companies, if you will. There are companies that even have office buildings with different sections within the organization. They have customer service people in there to help you facilitate paying them the ransom. They have coders helping to target specific government servers and specific government firewalls to try to get past it. There's even tech support that you can call and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this on my own. Can you help me develop ransomware? By the way, how do I set this whole Bitcoin thing up? That is what, when I say that these guys are organized, they are fully organized companies. And chances are these organizations are from nation states that do not like the United States. We have it narrowed down to a few different nations that perpetuate about 90% of all these attacks. And I don't need to name them due to, I'm sure everybody here knows. I will say one name and one story that I do share with a lot of people. They're in China. You can actually register as a hacker or whatever they call it, but you can register with the government. And if you're part of this program, if you log in, if you steal government information, if you steal proprietary information for large organizations, if you turn this information over to the government, they will pay you a bounty. This is government funded, government supported hacking that happens from nation states. This is why our Treasury Department is saying, look, we should really think about making it illegal to pay ransomware. And then the last threat that I personally pay particular attention to is IoT. And I'm in this business. I hate using the industry buzzwords, but IoT, Internet of Things, basically the way I look at it is this, and what frightens me is this. Last year, the world changed. Everybody went into working from an anywhere environment to a hybrid environment. Some days you're in the office, some days you're working from home. Think about all of the devices that connect to these home users' networks, your own staff. How are they connecting? What's connecting to their home network? My own home has Alexa running everything. My lights, my sound system, my door locks, my alarm system on my house, my cameras on the outside. Everything around me is run by something connected to the internet. And this is something that we desperately need to take a look at when it comes to protecting that, especially if you have home users that are accessing critical government information. Now, how are these bad guys attacking? Mostly in some unsophisticated ways. Things haven't changed much. The code has changed into how they're hiding it, but the way that they're deploying this code hasn't changed all that much over the years. We have brute force attacks. I mentioned the dark web. Literally right now, we could go on the dark web and buy a password cracking software for about 20 bucks. And that password cracking software will try trillions of combinations of characters, numbers, letters, you name it, just looking for weak passwords. How many of your end users have a weak password? These are things that are easily crackable. And for what used to take weeks to do, is now we're talking about a matter of minutes with the right software that people are utilizing. Speaking of passwords, password browsers, or the password saved in your browsers. And we're all guilty of this, myself included. I save passwords in my browser from time to time. And prior to me taking having software that helps encrypt this and make sure that I'm safe, but it's just human nature. We're saving a password on our accounts for shopping just to make it quicker to purchase something. Well, guess what? The first place that these bad guys look is your browser. They can access your passwords if they're saved in there. There are methods of saving your passwords that Verteks can certainly recommend. I know at Datto, we have Datto pays for one for our home use and work use, that everything's encrypted, one password to remember, and then it stores it across a database that is safe and secure. The third way that these bad guys are getting into networks, credential stuffing. This is utilizing old passwords that may be found on the dark web. If your password combination was part of a breach at some point throughout the years, chances are that combination is still living on the dark web somewhere. There are thousands of databases out there which you can buy subscription to and say, yes, give me 10,000 emails and passwords. So if you have users on your network that haven't changed their passwords in quite a long time, chances are those passwords could be out there on the dark web. Now, what these bad guys are doing with those passwords, they're trying these passwords through the software that you can use against everything. Financial institution, banking, medical records, whatever it is, they're applying known passwords and email combinations and just dumping them on various institutions, just seeing if any of these things still work to get in. And then lastly, the tried and true method, phishing. Quite frankly, this is not going to go away. It comes down to training your people. Phishing is getting somebody to click on a link, open an email, download some sort of malware that's embedded somewhere, and they're getting very, very good at doing this, from spoofing emails to masking it to embedding their code in PDFs. One of the stats on one of those first slides I shared with you, 85% of email attachments are malware. 85%. That's how much your services and Verteks and security solutions that are out there that are blocking these from ever even getting to your inbox. But that's how prevalent this stuff is happening. We know ransomware is king. Just last year alone, it's roughly about $75 billion was costing small and medium organizations. And I think that number is quite low, frankly, because how many of them haven't reported it to the FBI? How many of them aren't required to report it as in other industries? The point that I'm trying to make is we are all under attack, all of us. And you guys more specifically on the government side of things, because of the amount of notoriety it gets and the amount of money that can be had by doing so. But quite frankly, it's just about every large vertical that's out there. Healthcare, we saw an increase in that due to COVID, and just showing that these guys have no morals. They were attacking hospitals right at the peak of COVID because they knew hospitals were overwhelmed. Government and municipalities, there are a ton of stories out there about governments getting attacked, from the large-scale ones like Atlanta and Baltimore and New Orleans, to even small municipalities, small sheriff's organizations and law enforcement agencies and everything like that. There is no shortage of these stories, and it's something we all need to be concerned about. And then rounding out that list is education, any kind of school districts or universities, technology providers, including even somebody like Datto, somebody like us. We are in their crosshairs as well, so we must maintain the topmost security levels and make sure that our systems are rock solid and safe. And then the last two are professional services and financial institutions, which are no secret. So why are municipalities so vulnerable as of late? And I'm even dating back past about 3 years. It's been an increase on government, both state and local, that are getting attacked. And mostly the number one reason is the age of the systems and not being able to quickly upgrade some of the solutions that are in place, because it is such a huge undertaking. And rolling out a brand new platform to large scale organizations like governments, a state government, or even your local government, that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of thought process and RFQs and everything, or RFPs and everything like that. Unlike the private sector, you guys can't hide the attacks either. You have to let people know, and that's what makes it so much more in the crosshairs of the threat actors. They know this, and Atlanta's that perfect example. They gave them a chance to pay it, and then it went to the masses. Everybody heard about it, and it was front page news for a good month a couple years back. There's limited budgets when it comes to upgrading all of that and the high cost to repair. So what the bad guys are thinking is, let me attack a municipality because they're probably more likely to pay me than to go through all the pain of having to repair everything. Not only that, but the amount of data that you guys are now hosting and dealing with, because you guys are focused on moving into that next futuristic realm of what cities will start looking like. There are a ton of connected devices in cities, whether that's private devices or government issued devices or public Wi-Fi devices that are out there. And also, what do we do with all of this technology? And how is this money being spent? In prepping for this, I found some cities out there. Pittsburgh, they recently spent $11 million to triple the smart traffic monitoring, and just monitoring how traffic flowed through the city of Pittsburgh. How do we improve traffic for the population here? Columbus, Ohio, they had a full list. I didn't want to add it on this slide, but Columbus is looking at investing in 2019. They invested $140 million. In 2 years, their goal is to spend $1 billion on a number of different things, from traffic monitoring to smart car charging to technologies that aren't even in the masses yet, but they're starting to think about it, saying, okay, well, next year, let's talk about implementing this. They are spending a ton of money. All of these technologies have more data to manage, more data that is vulnerable, and more data that requires us to secure it. In Denver, they spent $30 million just on Wi-Fi enabled smart lighting, vehicle charging, pedestrian sensors. This is the future of what's happening to cities all across the world, really. And the thing is, there's no single blueprint for all of this. People are just learning as we go, as we start introducing technology into even more of our daily lives to make sure that lives are simpler, lives are easier. We can get to work faster. Emergency response vehicles can get to where they need to be in a manner that's safe for them. All of this relies on a network somewhere. All of this relies on data, and we have to keep that data protected. And in doing this and building out your cyber resilience strategy, there's tons of white papers, there's tons of information on how to do this through the NIST framework that the government adheres to and recommends as far as building this cyber resilience strategy. At Datto, we have broken down the NIST framework into essentially 3 main focus areas. First one being your people. First thing that you and your staff needs to realize is that security is everyone's responsibility. This is not just on you in IT, not just on the leaders and the ones that provide the technology. It's on everybody. It's on us to understand what to click on, what not to click on. What does a phishing email look like? And what about those of us that are traveling along the state and we're in different cities, we're in hotels, we're traveling to conferences? How do we access our networks? What if we're on a public Wi-Fi? What if I'm at a Starbucks working today and I need to connect? How do I do that safely? So it comes down to training your own staff, making sure that they know how vast of a problem this is, and then what they personally can be doing about it. After you have the people trained, then you start talking about the processes internally and establishing those mechanisms to achieve that cyber resilience, to make sure that if something bad happened, you know exactly how to react, who's responsible for what, and what the next steps are. So that comes with regular auditing of your systems, having that DR plan in place, having that training of the people, saying, let's enact the DR plan. Let's say we just got attacked. What does everybody do? How are people accessing, and what are they accessing? As well as just simple steps as monitoring the privilege. I mentioned earlier that insider threats was a great danger, and this could be prevented by just monitoring accounts. What do people have access to, especially an offboarding program? One of the ones, I'll divert real quick on this story. Datto actually helped find a gentleman that tried selling his credentials on the dark web, and what it all came down to, that organization didn't have a proper offboarding plan for one of the employees. They let this person go, and they never fully offboarded them from everything. And this employee still had credentials to log into certain servers, and that's what he was trying to sell. And we turned that over to the FBI, and the person got caught. But these are some steps, basic steps that can help prevent some of these attacks that happen. And then the last bit is the technology. How do we utilize technology better to make us safe? From physical protection of where your servers are located, who has access to them, to the security protocols, the network protection, the perimeter protection that's out there, and then your applications themselves, and making sure that everything you're working with is compliant. And then the last part of this is on the data side of it, a proper business continuity and disaster recovery solution, which is what Verteks and Datto offer, but ways that if somebody got past your security layers, the next step of cyber resilience is saying, if I do get attacked, if somebody gets past, how am I going to recover? How fast am I going to respond? That is what business continuity is. Now, I meet with organizations of all sizes, of all verticals, of all across the world. And I hear this all the time. I've got a great backup solution. Our data is already in the cloud. Our servers are out there on a server farm somewhere. They're in a data center, and we're safe. We're not worried about it. We have redundancy built in. It's all good. And the first thing I ask them is, well, do you have a backup solution or a business continuity solution? Because they are two very, very different things. If your data is just living in a data center somewhere outside of your normal environment, that's great. That's fantastic. You've got your data backed up. You have a backup solution, a second copy of your data is living elsewhere. True business continuity is taking into account cyber resilience, taking into account if I get attacked, how fast can I get back up and running? Business continuity, and the easiest way I can describe business continuity and the Datto and Verteks solutions is rewinding the hands of time. Something bad happens, let me just act like it didn't happen. Let me go backwards in time and pretend it didn't happen. Let me get my data back. Let me get my people back to work as quickly as humanly possible in a matter of minutes. That's business continuity. Now, we know ransomware is running rampant, and that's exactly what Verteks is doing to prevent this. They are doing something about this to help you guys. They are providing that true business continuity solution. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but I will share with you, I've got 2 slides of just high-level overview of what I really mean by business continuity and how Verteks provides that for you. So I'm a pictures guy, and especially when it comes to technology, if you can't draw it out for me, it's hard for me to wrap my head around what it actually does. And here's what I've got. Your business systems are here on your left. These are your production, this is your production environment, your workstations, your servers, virtual, physical, all of your employees that may still be working from home or a hybrid environment, even the devices that they bring themselves and introduce to the network, which is another problem that we should really think about. But this is how your network runs. This is how your government, your municipality, your day-to-day activities run. Now, what Verteks and Datto do is we back up all of these devices, as little as every 5 minutes. And we're storing that data on a local physical or virtual appliance. And what we're doing with this through our technology, we're able to actually run ransomware detection on every single backup. We're looking for footprints of ransomware if they made it past your security layers. And if we do detect what looks like it may be ransomware, we raise a red flag and instantly tell Verteks, hey, something just happened in that last backup window. You should look at it. Go check it out and see if it is indeed ransomware. The beauty of our solution is through our technology, we're also able to virtualize from our on-site device, again, physical or virtual, and we're able to recover that data and restore in a matter of seconds. So if you have a workstation that gets ransomware, we shut down that workstation, get it off the network, we recover that workstation, we rewind the hands of time to 5 minutes before that workstation got ransomware, and we get that user back up and running. On your servers, if it infects your servers, same exact process. We literally flip a switch and we turn our solution into your network. We can do that from our local appliance. Now we're also sending that data to 2 of our data centers, and compliant data centers that we can adhere to government compliance, financial, and HIPAA compliance as well. Data centers in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Salt Lake City, Utah, so bi-coastal, and it's storing the same data. And what we can also do is virtualize from our data centers. This comes into play for your natural disasters. If you do end up having a storm that rolls through, you lose connection, you lose a building, we can bring up that whole network from our data center, give you guys all the VPN access, the secure access to that virtualized instance, and get you and your staff back up and running. Now, what does this mean for your end users? Real simple and easy for your end users. They're working. They click on a wrong link and they introduce ransomware to the network. We just go to that Datto appliance and we spin up an exact same image of that workstation literally in under 10 seconds. We can bring that back get them back up and running in a safe virtual environment from a different device, and they can continue going about their job. The benefits of virtualization, it reduces the downtime, obviously. We can do this both locally, as I mentioned, from our on-site solution or from the Datto data center. And this helps with your, and another industry buzzword warning, it helps with your recovery time objective and recovery point objective. What that basically is the cost of downtime and how long can your network survive if you lose access to it. How long can you fundamentally take care of what you need to take care of if you have zero network? I can share with you this. In Atlanta themselves, they were down for 30+ days. They didn't bring on all systems online for over 30 days. And when I say all systems, even the police agency, the police network was offline. There are horror stories where even the police stopped arresting people for a time because they had no idea if they had a warrant or not. They were not able to access those records. And everything they did was back to paper, the old school way of doing everything. How many of those police officers were going out there and doing it, or just letting people go and saying, look, you know, I don't really know what's happening, but you can't check to see if you have a warrant, go about your day. These are real world examples when you think about how fast you need to bring these networks back online, as well as the cost of all of this and going down. And I know this is a bit different because it's funding sources and coming from various places, but overall, these are numbers that we need to look at. The percentage of downtime costs are skyrocketing, especially in the state and local governments, because of all the steps that have to happen. If you guys experience a breach, attack, one, you have to let the people of your town know and of your state know. You have to run through remedying the solution, which is incredibly expensive, forensic investigation to see how it happened, and then security measures to make sure it never happens again. You start adding up all these costs, and then you start tacking on all the lawyer fees and everything that has to happen for that result. Suddenly you're looking at, yes, that upwards of 486% increase just in the past couple of years. These are real dollars that we need to be concerned about. Now, if you do want to take I do have a method of just estimating what downtime costs using the recovery time objective and recovery point objective thresholds. Basically, we can estimate what downtime would cost your specific network. This can come into play when you are looking at adding on new solutions. If you're looking at increasing your security, if you're looking at Verteks to come in and provide what I just explained as far as business continuity, and you need to justify the investment, this is an exercise you can run through. And it's a series of 10 quick questions, and it takes into account your staff. How many people are on staff? What's the average salary? What's the overhead cost of the staff? What size is your network? What's your current situation look like right now from a backup perspective? All of that goes into these 10 easy questions on this calculator, and it'll estimate by the hour what an hour's worth of downtime costs. So in my mind, if I'm using this, I'd be using this to help make my environment safer. I would be going out there looking at the experts to provide business continuity and security solutions, and then going to the powers that be to say, look, here's what we're facing if we do go down, or we can save some money by investing it and making sure we don't go down.
Eric, if I could interject real quick. I know this is one of the hotter topics. Is everybody on this call is intimately aware of the cost of downtime, mostly in terms of stress on top of the dollars. But one of the things we get asked a lot is what metrics to use for either recovery time or recovery point. And I think that having some kind of tool that you can use that's pretty easy, that will allow you to go through this process and at least have something to benchmark. So if what we recommend is it maybe once or twice a year to do a tabletop exercise for your DR or continuity, and just include a calculation of recovery time or recovery point. That way you can have something to share as part of your overall technology plan or strategic plan. Even if you're not using it for budget justification, it's nice to have the data to be able to present to say, hey, we did an exercise, here's the results. The reason I say that is I think the biggest challenge we've seen that you guys have told us about is that you've already asked for the budget to do these solutions. You've asked for the information to to get approval for new technology, and frequently it's not coming back. But then the powers that be sometimes act like they don't know how much downtime to expect or what that cost is. So this could be a win-win situation. You have something to have on file as part of your planning, and in addition to that, you could share it with your team members and potentially supervisors, bosses, to let them know this is what we're looking at in a real world scenario.
Precisely. And as I just wrap up here, for any of this, for that RTO and RPO calculator, the needs assessment, maybe it's just a second set of eyes on the network. You may be doing everything right, and maybe just having somebody else come in there and confirm that for you. That would be a good pat on the back that you're doing things great. That's where I suggest just reaching out to the experts here, and do that by, and sure, we'll be following up with you guys, but info@verteks.com. They'll help you out with anything you guys need as far as true business continuity, security, even ways to store your passwords the right way. They've got solutions that can help with all of that. So with that, on behalf of Datto and Verteks,
let's do some Q&A if you don't mind, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a couple people ping me when you were getting ramped up about kind of the picture and showing the left to right current technology stack, backup, and cloud. Let me ask you about what your experience is and what your take is on the differences between, what this can do versus maybe like a Veeam offering, because Veeam can back up locally, Veeam can back up to the cloud. Can you directly address that or talk about that? That was asked.
Yeah, certainly. So the way that we look at it like this, and the way that we differentiate ourselves from Veeam, I'm not bashing any other solutions that are out there. Veeam is a solid solution, but one of the things to consider when you're using a solution like that, you are essentially building your own disaster recovery solution. You're sourcing the software from Veeam, and you're sourcing a data center. You're sourcing your own hardware to put it on. So right there, you've got three different people that you're working with. You're working with Veeam on the software. You're working with the data center, wherever you're sending that data to. You're working with your hardware and making sure that that hardware is rock solid and can do what you need it to do in the event of a disaster. And the way that Datto is different, we take all of that burden off of you. It is our data center. We pride ourselves in having an immutable cloud, meaning once we have that data in the Datto data center, it cannot be changed. Our technology itself is a little bit different. We are running through those ransomware detections that other vendors are not doing. We're doing that on every single backup. And our tech process itself for the way that we're storing and saving this data, it's not your typical backup chain. What we have is it's called an inverse chain technology, meaning we can go back to any single point in time and recover. And so if a lot of other solutions where if you build it out like that, it's links in a chain. One backup is dependent on the one prior, which is dependent on the one prior, where if one of those backups gets corrupted or compromised, that it destroys your whole backup chain. Datto is completely different with the way we do this. So a couple of things just to summarize all of that long-winded answer. We pride ourselves in having an immutable cloud, meaning once we have the data, it cannot be changed. One vendor for everything you need with all the resources to help get you back online, whether it's a natural disaster or ransomware or any other cause of downtime, and all doing it from one single vendor and one data center and one aspect of having it all done, and with the 24/7, 365 support all behind it, all done through Verteks.
Sure. Appreciate that explanation. Let me ask you, this was a follow-up question I got. You mentioned immutable. So you're saying it can't be changed once it's up there. How are you making sure that it's not already encrypted when you put it in the cloud? What do you do for that?
So we're running through a couple of steps there. That is where the ransomware detection is being done on that local unit before we even send it to the cloud. And that's where the red flag starts. So we're checking that if something got past all of our security layers, we're checking it before we even send it off site. Now, that's going to be the first place that it catches it. You are also, this is a sidetrack to it, but you're also able to encrypt all of that data, either on the appliance, in transit, it's automatically encrypted, or in the Datto cloud. That also ties into the immutable cloud, that data can't be changed once it's there, but we adhere to making sure that all of our technology is as rock solid as possible, and that our data centers cannot be, and I shouldn't say this, but cannot be breached, and that each moment in time that is a snapshot that we back up is independent. So even if the trace of ransomware, or if somebody accidentally deleted something, it doesn't affect the rest of your backup.
So let's pivot past ransomware and talk about the natural disaster angle. This is one of the ones that I was asked about earlier in the webinar. Somebody sent a question in terms of the cloud. If they've got a large on-site IT infrastructure, let's say 25 to 40 servers, and they've got 20, 30 terabytes of data locally, how do you virtualize that in the cloud in the event of a hurricane or tornado or some other disaster? How do you do that?
Sure. We've got, and this is another advantage of Datto over our competitors. And this is even dating back years to Hurricane Sandy that went up towards the East Coast, where literally New York was underwater. We had thousands of partners and tens of thousands of networks that were all offline at the same time. We have built our own data center. This is our data center. We have built this in mind that we would be able to give as many resources as possible to networks of any size. And we take this into account during the provisioning of it. So as we see these networks start backing up the data, the amount of data that we have, we're monitoring that on the backside, saying, okay, we've got X amount of new data we've added. We need to add more processing power, more servers to our data center, so that if we did have a hurricane that took out multiple locations in one area, we do have the resources available from a technical standpoint. From a people standpoint, we have help outside of Datto with 24/7, 365 with global resources, but we also have planned for major wide-scale outages where it comes down to not so much the tech resources, but the people resources to make sure we can get all these sites back online. And what we have is help on retainer, basically a panic button. If there's a massive outage, we hit a panic button and people no longer become the problem. We have people on that can come and help the Datto team out. So also, what I will say, as far as in the event of a disaster, let's say you lost your network and you go down, we have two different things that happen automatically. One part of the Datto team with Verteks and with your teams are all about getting you back online as quickly as possible. The second team is internal at Datto. What they are doing is taking the data that we have of yours in our data centers, and we're putting them on our devices at the same time. So we're putting it on a device that we are going to then ship you overnight, so you have your data on a physical server that you can then bring into your network if you didn't lose the entire network, introduce to your network, and virtualize from that for even increased performance. So there's a couple of different things happening in the event of an all-out disaster.
Yeah. So let's say it's more of a man-made disaster and not a natural disaster, hurricane, or heaven forbid a cyber incident. But let's say it's an accidental deletion or an accidental overwriting. Overwriting seems to be a bigger challenge sometimes. But what if they're using this solution and they get a situation where they have an accidental overwrite or deletion of something that's 6, 8, 9 months old? What do you do about that?
So what we have is a couple of different things on how we store the data. We offer you guys an unlimited amount of data for up to an unlimited amount of time. There's a couple different ways to work the solution. We can either keep a rolling year's worth of all of the changes, and what in most cases what government, state and local municipalities do is infinite retention, meaning don't ever delete any of the data. We're going to keep as much of it there as possible. If somebody does delete data, we make them go through a bunch of hoops, because we also know that the most sophisticated ransomware attacks are also going in and deleting your backups. So what we have is, even if you wanted to delete some data, you would have to call our our staff, and you'd have to jump through some hoops in order to delete it. And then even if you did delete it, we're still holding onto that data for a set amount of time, just in case. So we have basically, it's a recycle bin in the cloud where, you know, somebody may have deleted initiated a deletion, but they included the wrong piece, the wrong file, and then come back to us a few days later saying, hey, we need that file back. We'll still have it. But for you guys, for everybody on this call, I would recommend infinite cloud retention, where we're just saving everything. Just save it. The cost of the cloud has come down so much, just save it all.
So you can use a cloud console to recover something 9 months old, no problem.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. We just go back to that specific moment in time. Every single backup we take on every single device is a moment in time that we keep, and we can go back and recover any of that.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot. I mean, I'll continue to monitor. There's one more question in here. How long has Datto been a public company? That was one of the questions that was asked. Can you answer that one?
Yeah, we went public in October of last year, middle of a pandemic. And yes, we did go public. As such, there's even more of an increased need for security and a lot more eyes on us now. And yes, that's why we have such incredible investments to making sure we do have that immutable cloud, making sure we do have staff on retainer, that if there is a wide scale outage, that we are able to help our people out.
Yeah, Verteks has been a Datto partner for 7 years or so, and during that time, we use Datto shells, obviously, but we've got Verteks now manages about 500 servers, and last count, I think about 400 terabytes in the Datto cloud. And we've had to simulate, you can also simulate, we've simulated cloud recovery, simulated on-site recovery. At Verteks internally, we just completed a ransomware tabletop exercise yesterday where we walked through our recovery paradigm, including on-site and cloud. And so that's something we also recommend you do. If you, glad to share with you for free the tabletop exercise template we use. Mike DeFilly created it. Let me know if you want me to send you a copy of that. I'll send you a copy. Something that might help you work through an internal exercise when you've got time to think it through and maybe sharpen up your plan a bit. We'll continue to monitor for questions. Bryce, thanks for asking that one question. Any other questions, send them in chat or Q&A. That concludes the content. We're going to stick around for a moment longer. Any last questions, we're glad to answer. Eric, thank you very much for doing the presentation today. Audience, thank you very much. We'll send you all a post-webinar survey. We'll post this on our YouTube channel. We will stick around for a couple of minutes. If there's any last Q&A, please ask those questions. We'll try to answer them. Otherwise, have a great day and a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you for having me.